what is one memory that sticks out the most from living there, growing up as a child?
Somebody was always there, knocking at the door, wanting to go out and play. And we'd go out in the morning
Come home
with
when
our
street
bathing
lights are
suits on. And we'd stay outside all day. I guess we did come in and eat. Lunch maybe. But we'd play.
Yeah,
and
most
we
of the
had
kids.
no games or anything. But we had
We made games.
You made up your own stuff, right?
tin cans.
Tin cans, you had telephones, you'd make telephones, you had telephones.
That's right, yeah,
Can out of cans.
right.
And we played with the cook kits, Baa Baa, Black Sheep, and hide and go seek, and you could draw on the streets. You could take that chalk and
We did
have-
chalk, we all got chalk.
Oh, chalk.
Someone asked me, where did you get the
Yeah,
chalk?
where'd you get the chalk?
You know what it was? It was the inside of sheetrock.
Oh my gosh,
Okay.
that's right.
That was-
Neat, okay.
Well, I
Blanche,
kicked her out right
when
away.
did you meet everybody? When did you get
With
involved
Marcel.
with this gang?
We lived
All our
in that little
lives.
cottage behind
Right.
my grandmother.
Yeah.
I mean, you met right as
That's
soon as you
where
moved here?
Frankie Pitts.
Yes,
Well,
my
you were-
family
his
lived with her
grandmother,
family
Sure.
until
Okay.
they
Groceries for
found
you.
a house and
Today.
built a house
You
or
were a
something.
baby when you
Yeah.
moved here.
And
Huh?
we just did
I mean, you were born in
violin.
Southampton?
Yeah.
Frankie
Back
Pitts.
at home.
I didn't think you were.
Yes,
We,
sir.
we got when we're talking.
Oh,
I hate to have to scold y'all, but when I ask Blanche something, I gotta be able to hear her.
We should be shutting up.
In other words,
Did you just get that?
yeah.
Okay.
I
Or dress on Sunday. And you
sneakers.
could go into the water, you could go swimming and fish, get blowfish, bring them home. My mother would clean them as kids. My mother would cook them and would have them for dinner. I mean, it was just
Breakfast.
it was just the freedom of being down there. And you knew everybody by their first name. If you didn't know them, you called them Aunt Hattie or
Everybody,
everybody, your aunt or uncle, even if they weren't related to you. It was just a wonderful place to live.
You know what stands out in my memory?
what's that?
My father taking me to school when the road by Eva Schutzels went all the way up to the school,
Yeah.
and I got back home before he did. I went to because I hated school. I went down the hallway, down the hill. When my father got home, I was back home already.
Well, this was after
She
the
hated school.
They knew I didn't want to go to school.
So they had
So,
to.
so my father took me to school, but by the time he got back home, I was already home.
And what happened?
Nothing that I can remember.
Did you have to hide, or did he see you and then say you got to go back to school?
My father wouldn't have forced me to go back to school.
Wasn't that big of a deal then?
No.
No.
I
That's
had
funny.
to try to get her back to school because I was a year and a half older than her. And see, we lived below the school.
Right.
This was after the
Well,
hurricane.
we're Cheryl.
That's after the
Cheryl's-
hurricane.
Cheryl's house is the house that we moved into the day after that 38 hurricane.
Okay.
And I was married from that house, and so was.
So
Fritz.
you left the day after the hurricane. You and Francis, your whole
We
family.
lost our home.
You lost it, so you had no choice.
No.
What kind of trouble could you get into when you were a kid in the Fort Pond Bay?
One day I got into trouble. I told my mother I was going to run away. She says, well, that's good. Wait a minute. She came out of the bedroom with a suitcase. Opened the door, go. Now I'm thinking, where am I going? I remember I got on the railroad tracks and I started walking towards the woods. And all of a sudden it got dark. Where am I going? I think I'm going to get hungry. Turned around, I came back, I knocked on the door, and I said, Ma, I'm hungry. I think I'm sorry. Oh, come on in. She opened up the bedroom door. She says, go inside. I went in there. She locked the door. I couldn't come out. I said, Ma, I'm hungry. No dinner tonight. Go to bed. Now I'm really mad. She had a plant in there. I ate the plant. Right down to the root. I don't know what the hell it was, but could have been anything. But I was just so mad I didn't care. I just gobble it down. Whew. I was a different person after the next day.
You obviously played in the street.
We did.
Okay. There must have been a car every now and then that would come by. Certainly, you all knew enough to get out of the road, right?
There was no reason for a car to come.
Well, not too many people have had cars, number one, but we used to have vegetable fellas coming and
Yeah,
delivering,
a
and that's the
bakery.
one thing I can remember, and I think I mentioned it to you the other day. There was a
There's
little
Stefano.
boy that was killed
Just
right on the
Stefano.
street
Yeah.
by us,
Yeah,
and they, by a vegetable truck, just a little bitty guy, you know, and stuff like that.
that was the greengrocer. Then we had the bakery, Eddie Skank.
The Bistrian family that came to Montauk, that was the
That was the
Bistrian.
Bistrian family that came there and they would sell vegetable
It
things.
was
Oh, it
Pete
was?
and his mother. Pete came
And then
with
there
his-
was somebody from Sag Harbor too, just Stefano.
Oh, yeah, I don't.
Oh, you don't remember that name?
Yes.
There was one fellow
Who was
that
the-
definitely was a creep. His name was Frank Rocco.
Yeah, we had a couple of creeps,
He
but
was a creep. He would walk,
Celina took care of him.
he'd be walking ahead of you, and but he'd keep going like this and looking back. So Frances said, take a picture, it'll last longer. That's what she said. A typical day was your mother and Frances trying to get rid of me. That was a typical day. They didn't want me to hang out. I was too young for that, right?
Okay.
And Blanche. Blanche always used to say she was a year older than me, but I don't hear that anymore. It was 11 months, but she wanted to get that whole year. But she stopped saying that a few years
How many years back?
ago. A few years.
And what did you do?
Probably went home and cried.
Okay.
No, she was tough. She didn't cry.
And one thing, when they said about Father Bill's camp,
Yes.
he used to have a movie, I think one night a week.
Yeah.
And we'd go to see the movie. And there was a fella there who I think had his eyes on Francis. His name was Thomas Annunziato. Remember?
Oh, yeah?
Francis doesn't want to remember.
Anthony.
And one of the fellas that was there later became a priest. And his father, Tony Barretto,
Tony Beretta.
he became a priest. And he was one of the old, I think he was a counselor. He was one of the
He was
older
older,
boys.
yeah,
Right.
older.
Right.
There was a little guy who was always pulling up his pants, but I can't think of what his name was.
Peter O'Hara.
No,
I had a
no,
crush
he
on
was one
him.
of the older.
Didn't you have a phone set up?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
To Francis's
Yes.
house.
Which was what? How far of a distance were your
Well, I
windows?
went from one window to another, and we were so close to each other's house.
Oh, you could yell.
That wall.
I would be talking
So
to
what,
Francis.
Francis? That's about what, 10 feet?
6 feet.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So,
We're close.
so, and you had, what were they, cans or an intercom?
No,
Or,
no.
No,
the
we
phone
sent,
from
we got from
Sears and
Sears and
Roebuck.
Roebuck.
really?
Sears and Roebuck.
Yes.
And it only
Well,
went
we'd
one
stand
way?
Just here.
We'd I'd stand outside the window, and she'd be outside the window at her house, and we'd be looking at each other and talking on the phone and listening, and we could hear everything we were saying.
So obviously it didn't cost money to use that phone,
No, I don't think.
because that wouldn't have lasted
No, we
long.
couldn't have rolled long distance. That would have been out of the world. We couldn't do that.
And what was the purpose? For you kids, or did they buy it for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Blanche, what was your mother and father's name?
My father was Louis.
Louis McDonald?
Yeah.
And your mother?
My mother was Mary Agnes, but they always called her Aggie
Aggie, and what was her last maiden name?
Smith.
That's Louis. That's Leonard. That's Blanche's dad. That's Fran and Celina and Eva's
Yeah.
dad. And
Vincent.
Vincent, of course.
But we made out We ate. Dad was a fisherman. We ate fish for 6 days a week.
Yeah, that's what I
Huh?
told him.
Lucky we didn't turn into a porgy. Huh? I went with him, but the trouble is the damn boats were all around bottom. I got so seasick. I told him one day, I went, Dad, do me a favor, come a little closer to the point because I'm going to jump over. I want to jump to shore. You're not tough like the old man. You're right. I'm not tough. I'm just dying. I went with my mother's father. Okay, Ben Pitts. And he had a big open boat. And we went from Fort Pond, that's where they were docked or anchored, from there to the Gosman's parking lot, to the jetty right there. That's where all the fish were. You look on the bottom, to this day I can see them. 18, 20 pounders, fluke. You could almost walk on them, they were so thick. And so we loaded up in 2 hours. And then you can imagine the running he did from there to there. It's nothing. And he made, he did very well.
Just between that, just
Yeah.
that short a distance, he didn't go all the way out around the pond.
Didn't have to go before. The fish were right here. The east side of the jetty, 50 feet from the edge of the water, and then we had a southwest wind, and he drifted. Boats that big go slow. They drift slow, And we caught plenty of fish. I was with my grandfather. I always liked to fish with him. And I never got seasick on his boat.
Because it was flat bottom?
Well, yeah, and look, actually, you can
Or because you didn't go out to the...
No, you didn't have to go anywhere.
So Leo used to go out...
Oh. Said he never took me in, kept saying, you're not tough. Here I'm laying all over the boat, throwing up all over, sick as a dog. He wouldn't take me in. All of a sudden I lay down and I said, please take me in. All right, start up the engine. After a little while I thought we were going to be right at the dock over here. No, we were at a new ground. We were the hell off. And the fishing always got good. He knew how to catch fish. I said, Dad, don't you know I'm dying? You're not tough. That's what the word you got out of him. He always had a kind word to cheer you up. I remember him saying, hey, shouldn't you be in school? Dad, I quit school 2 months ago. Yeah, just as well. Yeah, that's what he told me. He was something.
My mother is the only Avon lady that I ever knew that didn't drive a car.
She walked everywhere.
She just sold, you know what they would do?
That's amazing.
Cards were a big thing in these people's lives. They
Right,
loved
men
to play
play
cards. She would buy an order of Avon and then split the cost between maybe 3 of them. And they'd play for maybe, this would be a box of soap,
Yeah.
and the next thing would be a thing of talcum powder. And that's how they entertained themselves.
Or
But
they played
TV
for
took
groceries.
that away from people. TV really did take that away from people.
Yeah.
Did your family speak a lot of French?
French. Yes, my grandmother did till she died. She
My
always spoke
father,
French, and my father and her, but my mother would never speak French.
I don't know what it was.
I never wanted my kids to know, because I thought we were foreigners.
Right.
I didn't want them to know.
No, he never
What-
spoke.
But
What's-
your mother did, Francis.
Yeah.
Your mother spoke.
She had the French prayer book and everything.
Yeah.
What was the phrase used the most? French phrase.
Marty Pull.
Marty Pull.
What is that?
Chicken shit.
Is that what it was?
I'm in one of the pictures and my dress is
Yes.
dirty.
It's on
I got a
backwards.
Band-Aid on. I said, I think the two of them probably threw me to the ground before the picture was
Well, you were a little brat.
Yeah, but
I probably
we've
was.
made up for it now. We have made up for
I
it.
know
Well,
it.
I
Since
like
we-
And I hope you're gonna keep doing it
I
too.
hope so. There was a radio show that used to come on, Amos and Andy.
Oh.
And I used to hate when my mother would holler out. She'd never say, come on in. She'd say, Amos and Andy is coming on. That's when I knew I had to go to bed. They come on at 7 o'clock at night,
Oh my
and we'd still be outside playing. This was summer and winter. We'd be outside playing, and when my mother would say, all right, Amos and Andy is on, and I'd say, oh, I gotta go in. I gotta go to bed.
I went to a few dances. I'll never forget it. And the music was pretty good. But I didn't know how to dance. So I was just staying there like all the other kids and the boys. We sit there and watch someone else have fun. And then it dawned on me, what the hell am I doing sitting here? I gotta learn to dance. They're having all the fun. And I ain't getting nothing out of this. So I just grabbed a girl and I said, let's dance. We went up there and I said, I'm not a very good dancer, but I'm gonna learn. So I learned on my own. And the more I danced, the better I got. And I danced on 5 cruise ships where the good music is and the floor. If the floors are right, you know, it's one thing. They gotta be right, and the shoes have gotta be right. Everyone in Montauk knows I can dance. I'm the best dancer in Montauk.
Yeah.
They all say that, you know. And I dance probably with good 10 girls, because floor's there. She danced in maybe 4 or 5 dances, and then she had enough. And you know, I'm just getting warmed up, and everyone says, "Where the hell do you come from?" I says, "I don't know, but I'm here."
You didn't know the hurricane was coming. Nobody
one
knew.
did.
No, there was no way of them warning you. It was just what? It started off as a rainy day.
I think it was just they thinking it was a northwester. They didn't think we didn't even know what a hurricane was.
Right. But you had nothing? I mean, not even on the radio? There wasn't reports
They
of
didn't
it?
report that. They didn't report weather on the radio.
About what time did you realize that something wasn't... When did you all realize
It had
something
to be
wasn't...
like in the afternoon.
Well, what they did was, one slates from the school came through the window, because we were in the 5th grade, and it hit the corner of the desk where they had the ink wells built right in the desk, and that's when they decided they better get us out of there. They started hitting into the windows, and they put us all in the gym, and we thought, this is wonderful. We've
Well,
got
they
no
played with
class.
us.
We were playing on there.
Singing and
having a good time, and we didn't realize, and somebody opened up that was the gym. Opened up the doors, and
Joe Cook.
Joe Cook passed out what he saw. They could see
You
stuff
could see
going
the
on
bed,
down
you
the
could see
bay.
the water.
It was nothing but
everything.
water.
So you guys went to the school.
We stayed
We
in
were-
the school.
they wouldn't let
We
us
were
out.
there.
All right, but you were at the manor, no?
Yeah.
How did you
get
all... Yeah, well...
Because Aunt Hattie and Uncle Gus picked us up from the school.
Oh.
They had come back from East Hampton and the wind was starting to really get heavy. So we said, we better pick her up at school and take her home. And they took Buddy and I home.
See, now we wouldn't have known that because we were all in the auditorium, and Mrs. Mulford was playing the piano
So
and
I
made
never got
us
to that.
sing songs, you know, to keep the kids quiet.
Yeah.
And we loved it. We were out of class.
What
Yeah.
did you wonder where Emily was?
No.
Because
We
you didn't really...
miss her.
Well, you didn't know it was a hurricane.
We didn't. No telephones.
Nobody knew.
Nobody
Nobody
knew.
knew.
Nobody knew.
Just you didn't
No,
miss.
we just thought it was like a northwester.
Yeah.
Well, Aunt Hattie and Uncle Gus dropped us off at the house. We went into the house. And we were there, and of course we were looking out the window because the bay was so rough. My mother washed clothes that morning. It was such a beautiful day. And by 3 o'clock, when they dropped me off, the wind was blowing and it was raining. It wasn't as hard, but it kept getting worse and worse. My mother brought her clothes in when she saw it flying around. She brought it in, and wasn't raining then. She brought it in, she folded it and put it on a chair in the dining room. Us kids were a little bit fidgety because my mother was a little bit worried, and my father was going outside all the time, checking outside, because things were flying around. So all of a sudden, my father opened the back door, and kittens with water were coming in. It was flooded in the back porch, and these poor little kittens were floating right in,
Oh my God.
and like that. My mother says, we got to get out of here. We got to leave. So Uncle Gus must have realized at the same time, because I don't think we had a phone then. We didn't have a phone then.
No phones in Montauk?
No. So sure enough, Uncle Gus came and picked us up, and we got in the car along with the dog. We got in the car and we started down the road, and we had to stop for our grandmother. Grandma Pitts and Grandpa Pitts' sister was all packed and ready to go back to Canada. She was going back on the train. Annie was her name. She started out of the house, dropped her suitcase. Everything flew out of her suitcase. Everything. There wasn't a thing, so she had to drop the suitcase outside. There was no room for it in the car anyway. I don't know how we ever all was in that car. Aunt Hattie, Uncle Gus, Marie, Buddy, me, my mother, my father, Grandma Pitts, grandfather, no, he was down the lake. Aunt Annie, so that's 9, was in the car. And we had to go find a place to go to because we had to go up high. So Uncle Gus says, we're going to the manor.
Yeah.
Did you know the story about getting to the bottom of the hill and the car stopped?
Yeah, I heard that story.
No, I didn't.
I
The
did.
car stopped, stalled. Uncle Gus says to Aunt Hattie, get behind that wheel. So my father jumped out of the car and Uncle Gus jumped out, and the two of them pushed the car
Oh my God.
all the way up the hill, the manor hill. I can always remember that. They pushed it all the way up the hill. Gus jumped out first for the running board, and he banged on the side door at the manor. We never went around the front. We just got as far as that. He banged on the door, and a man came to the door. He says, we're here. We got to come in. So the guy said, come on in. And it had closed for the winter. They were closing all the bedrooms, and they had mothballs on everything. They threw mothballs on all the mattresses.
Yeah, they did that in the olden days, yeah.
That's right. And we went in one of those rooms. Each family went into a room. And that's where we were for 3 days. Looked out the window, and all we could see was little chimneys and water. That's what you saw from up there.
The 38 hurricane, well, first of all, my dad didn't have a car. Gus had a car. And he picked us up, but they waited too late. All of a sudden, the tide came up so fast, water was right up to the running board. I said, oh my God, here I'm in the back seat. The car stalled 3 times. I just kept my mouth shut, and we made it. And they opened up the manor so we could get in. We almost didn't make the manor. You go in that manor, you wouldn't know it was a hurricane. You can't hear nothing. It was about 200 of us in there, because we were wiped right out from the beach. And mostly everyone came right in there after. They put mattresses on the floor. We slept right on that. Well, I remember just before I left that house, I looked out the window, and the house next door, of course, there's no foundation or nothing, you're just sitting there. And I remember the wind came, picked the house up twice, and all of a sudden tumbled it right into the bay. It blew over 100 miles an hour, you know. And so what happened was the bay and the ocean, they met.
It's all business as usual as far as
Yes.
what was being
And my
broadcast.
mother wasn't in Montauk when the hurricane hit. She had gone to town with her brother Pete, and they couldn't get across the Napak Stretch when it was time to come home.
Okay.
So she didn't really know if we were alive or dead.
So what did she have to do? Go back to Amagansett Way?
Yes, they went back to, I think it was the elm tree. Was that the elm tree?
Yeah.
In? I
By
think
Okay.
they
Okay.
stayed
by the
there.
railroad station.
Yeah, they
was
stayed
Mrs.
there. And the next day, when she went to the manor, we weren't there. Because most of the people did go to the manor. But we went to my Uncle Sam's house because it was right below the schoolhouse
Cool,
hill.
yeah.
Father Bell had a boys' camp right next to us.
Sure.
And that floated and it crashed into our house and kind of.
Is that what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Otherwise, you think the house would have withstood?
Probably, it might
Yeah.
have floated someplace, but
Right.
then we stayed at Sam Joyce's that night,
Yeah.
and then
All
the
of us
next
in
day we
one-
moved
all
into
of us on one
Beth's
bed.
house.
My father was
And her father.
at
At the Railway Express Agency, my father was the
And then he came and got us at the school. Then we went to my Uncle Sam's. And we stayed there overnight and moved in the mess bar
He
house the
said
next
that
day.
express car that they got in was moving around like a matchbox. The wind was so strong.
Because he and my Uncle Lou were both there.
But a telephone pole came down on
Yeah,
great grandma's house, right?
House, yeah,
Your grandmother's house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
right below the hill from where you went over that little bit of a
Yeah.
hill by
Yeah.
The clothes grandma put on the bench, were they still there
yeah, they were still there.
when you came back and you could see where the water level came up
Never
to?
went, it never got the clothes wet. on
Above the
seat.
stool.
There's
Oh my
very little
heavens.
water in
That's
our
the first
house.
time I've heard that story.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
very
That's why
interesting.
we were able to come right back in it. My mother got that place cleaned up and we lived there that winter,
Oh, did you?
yes.
Yeah.
Because I can remember going out, it was such a beautiful day the next day,
Oh, it was the most beautiful day you ever
going
saw.
out and
Really?
looking for my parents. I didn't know where they were. No one told us where they were.
Well, where were you?
I was with all of these people down to Sam Joyce's house.
Right.
But the next morning we went out looking. I went out looking anyway.
And
Where
what,
was
was
your
your,
mother and
yeah,
father?
were they looking for
Up
you?
the manor. How would they? Because they didn't have a car and no telephone. You know? I don't know how we got together. I don't know.
But the next day I can remember going down there and we had lost the mother cat and she had 4 or 5 kittens. And that always left.
Same
We had
here. I had
But it was very frightening for me. Every time they said we were gonna have a storm, I said, oh my God.
get us out of here.
And my mother had a miscarriage that day. Did you know that?
Yes, I heard that.
Yeah, she did.
Really?
Really?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Why do you think you all still remain friends all these years later?
Because that's the way the world was.
Mhm.
Families stayed
They
together.
Yeah. And that's the truth.
People weren't so anxious to get out of here. They must have been happy here.
Good life. Very good life.
It was really had to do a lot with the way we were brought up. Everybody just stayed together because you enjoyed each other's company, and that's why I think it's so great to think. I mean, we're all in our 80s and we're still friendly and fairly active. I think our parents, they didn't necessarily have easy lives growing up, and I think family meant everything in the world. Family was a big, big
It
thing.
was a big thing.
I don't go visit a lot of people. I come here, I call your mother every day, and so family is my life.
Yeah.
It's my whole life, and that's how we were raised.
Our houses were always open for anybody to come and go.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was always room for one more.
Yeah,
That's
always.
the way it was. Yeah.
Right?
Did
There
you
was-
all stay at each other's houses, like have sleepovers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There'd be 2 in the top bunk, 2 in the bottom bunk.
We had such wonderful
You
home
enjoyed it.
lives,
Yes,
We did.
immensely.
and you never even thought of anything
And you
like that.
know, it was the kind of a home life that every day, my mother, Francis's mother, and Marie's mother would get together every day and have a cup of tea in each other's home. People don't take time for that today.
Mm-mm.
And you know what? As we've gotten older,
had
we never
grandparents.
can get enough
Of each other.
of each other. I'm always so thrilled.
That's debatable.
Just we love to be together. Now this has been going on for what, 80 years? 80
And we're
years.
still doing it.
We had a wonderful life. We really and truly did.
Yes, we did.